Good morning, you're watching World News on TVP World. I'm Anna Kalczyńska. Polish authorities are calling for Poles in the Middle East to leave the region immediately as Israel and Iran trade missile attacks. Special flights home are to be arranged for those looking to evacuate free of charge. Warsaw Ministers of Defense Władysław Kośniak-Kamysz took to social media saying Polish military aviation stands ready to help from the very first hours of the crisis. The Polish Foreign Ministry released a statement strongly advising against traveling to Iran and urging all the Poles in Iran to leave the country as soon as possible. The ministry also took to social media saying their records currently indicate that there are 219 Polish citizens in Israel and 13 in Iran. The conflict between the two countries continues, so stay tuned to TVP World for the latest updates. Three people were killed and a dozen more taken to hospital after the latest wave of Iranian missile attacks on Israel. The strikes hit several sites in central and coastal Israel, damaging residential buildings and civilian infrastructure. Last night brought the total number of people killed in Israel up to 17 since the country started trading blows with Iran. The targets included the city of Haifa, where missiles fell on an oil refinery. Footage from Haifa shows skies above the facility lit up by incoming missiles, with several hitting the area near the refinery. Missiles launched by Iran also hit Tel Aviv, damaging residential buildings and the local power grid. At the same time, Israel launched missiles in its own against several targets in Iran. The Israeli Air Force struck military facilities in Tehran as well as the Foreign Ministry building, wounding several people and killing the deputy head of intelligence of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. According to Iranian officials, since Friday, at least 224 people were killed and 1,277 hospitalized due to Israeli missile strikes. And U.S. President Donald Trump said he hopes Israel and Iran can broker a peace deal. At the same time, Trump noted that sometimes countries have to, quote, fight it out first.
President, are you and Prime Minister Netanyahu on the same page concerning how to deal with Iran?
Well, we get along very well, and I will tell you that I think I have great respect for each other.
Can you give us
Go ahead, what?
Mr. President, can you give us a sense of what you're doing to try to de-escalate the situation between Iran and Israel?
Well, I hope there's going to be a deal. I think it's time for a deal, and we'll see what happens. But sometimes they have to fight it out, but we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
G7 leaders have gathered in the resort town of Kananaskis, Alberta, in Canadian Rockies. The escalating tensions between Israel and Iran are the main focus of the three-day gathering. And the agenda for the G7 summit was mostly centered around the war in Ukraine and U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff war against America's trading partners. Israel's decision to attack Iran, however, forced the group of 7 Western powers to concentrate on managing the conflict instead. Among those in attendance are Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, French President Emmanuel Macron, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. President Volodymyr Zelensky will also be present and is expected to meet with Trump on the sidelines of this summit. Among other newcomers are German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President,
To which Greenland is not for sale. That's the main message of the French President Emmanuel Macron, who visited Nuuk on his way to Canada for the G7 summit. Moreover, Macron said the EU wants to accelerate the implementation of partnership deals with Greenland on strategic metals.
A message of support for your territorial integrity, your borders. In a few words, everybody think in France, in the European Union, that Greenland is not to be sold, not to be taken. The European Union is ready to accelerate and deliver concrete results in energy and low-carbon energy, in infrastructure, education, sustainable fishing activities, and critical mineral and rare earths. And clearly we do believe that we now have to accelerate the implementation of the strategic partnerships signed 2 years ago in order to have concrete investment and to be part of the economic development of Greenland.
A temporary memorial to Polish victims of the German Nazi occupation of World War II will be unveiled in Berlin on Monday. The memorial is aimed at commemorating the suffering that took place in Poland between 1939 and 1945, as well as the cruel deaths of over 5 million Polish citizens, including approximately 3 million Jews. It's also intended to show historical ties between Poland and Germany before and after the war. The monument will be located at the site of the former Kroll Opera House, which from 1933 to 1942 functioned as the Assembly Hall of Germany's parliament. It is there that Adolf Hitler announced the invasion of Poland on September 1st, 1939. Trenches, anti-tank ditches and minefields paired with cutting-edge technology now stretch some 230 kilometers along Poland's eastern border. The East Shield is expanding quickly to ensure that any potential Russian attack would face a strong defensive barrier. Warsaw argues that this ambitious and extremely costly project should be co-financed by the EU and NATO.
The images of tanks rolling through Ukraine unimpeded in the first days of the Russian invasion in February of 2022 have left a lasting impression. The Polish army is working to ensure similar scenes will not happen here or along the entire eastern flank of Europe. Poland invited ambassadors from all 27 member states of the European Union's Political and Security Committee to see firsthand the work the army is doing on what it calls the East Shield.
We are extremely pleased to be here in Poland and to witness firsthand the capabilities of Polish armed forces. We are very, very impressed. We see how you build up the Eastern Shield and how the capabilities of the Polish armed forces are also defending Europe's freedom.
What the ambassadors toured is a training model of a project that's been under construction since October of 2024. Slated to cost billions of euro, the East Shield will run along the entirety of the border with Russia's Kaliningrad exclave to the north, as well as along the entirety of Poland's over 400-kilometer border with Belarus to the east. It'll include not just physical barriers along the borders, but also integrated surveillance and monitoring tech boosted by AI, as well as electronic warfare and anti-drone measures. Representatives from the Polish army took EU ambassadors on a walkthrough of the physical barriers that are being installed. Just past the border wall, that's mostly complete. The physical barrier will include anti-tank ditches, concrete anti-tank obstacles, minefields, defensive trenches, bunkers, and civilian shelters.
What we've seen together is Polish capabilities, and there's nothing that beats seeing on the ground how capable the armed forces are. And I think the Polish armed forces are really a great business card and a great example for many other armed forces.
A budget of €2.5 billion has been allocated for the implementation of the East Shield project, which for now is coming solely from the Polish budget. With this visit, the Polish Ministry of Defense is counting on getting some assistance from Europe and NATO.
We want to use the safe funds, but we want to use the EBI. We want to get the fund from the NATO, of course, for the counter mobility and mobility for our soldiers. So it will be mixed, and we think that it should be like a 50-50 for now. but we all know that the beginning of the process is on the side of the Polish government and the Ministry of Defense.
From the reactions, it seems like Deputy Minister Tomczyk's tour has impressed Poland's European friends.
It is a no-brainer that for all EU 27 member states, whether they're north or south, south or east or west, that we face those threats together and that together we step up and do more.
Whether this goes beyond lofty declarations, however, remains to be seen, particularly among those who are far from the front lines.
The Russians, the only thing that provokes the Russians is our weakness. When they see that we're weak, then they will continue to escalate. That's been the story for since Putin came to power.
Poland is currently engaged in discussions with Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Finland, with the objective of exchanging experience and combining border protection efforts. For TVP World, I'm Conrad Gorlinski.
As NATO prepares for a pivotal summit in The Hague later this month, the U.S. permanent representative to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, made a stop in Latvia to reinforce allied unity and military preparedness. Visiting the Adaži military base on Sunday, Whitaker praised Latvia's growing defense investments and reiterated the U.S. expectation that all member states commit to defense spending at 5% of their GDP.
We are heading into the summit in less than 2 weeks, and obviously we're expecting big things from that summit. We're expecting that all the allies sign up for a 5% spend on defense and security of their GDP. And for a lot of countries, including the United States of America, that is a big lift. But one of the things that we know here in Latvia, and one of the reasons I'm here, is because they are such a great ally, and they have already committed to that before the summit. They have committed to the increase in spending. They have, have a trajectory to meet their capability targets very quickly.
NATO is strong. NATO remains strong. NATO will become even stronger. And here, of course, the contribution by member states is crucial, and we highly value our partnership, strategic partnership with the United States. The United States is indispensable nation for us, for NATO as an alliance, and NATO as alliance must be ready to face those new challenges.
Today, all eyes in Asia are looking towards Kazakhstan, Astana, where leaders of 6 countries from the continent gathered for the China Central Asia Summit. Among the officials present in Astana are the presidents of Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan and China. The summit in Kazakhstan begins today and will last until June 18th. Apart from the larger roundtable, the summit in Astana will also include one-on-one sideline talks between Xi and his 5 counterparts. The China Central Asia Summit is a dialogue mechanism with China, which China deems as a vital step towards building cooperation and trust across Eurasia. According to Beijing, the discussions strengthen bilateral ties between the countries, as well as lay foundations for a new model of multilateral collaboration in the Eurasian region. At the same time, all participants of the summit are aware of the necessity to bolster the region's economic development. Hence, China and the 5 countries have long been promoting deeper economic and trade cooperation. A major triumph at the 24 hours at Le Mans for Polish motorsport fans, and a full-circle moment for legendary Polish driver Robert Kubica, who's just made motorsport history. Kubica's triumph at Le Mans in the hypercar category wasn't the only Polish victory in France, as the Inter-Europol competition race team won in the LMP2 category. Robert Kubica won this year's legendary 24 Hours of Le Mans race, delivering a historic victory for him, AF Corse team behind the wheel of a Ferrari. The win is especially meaningful for the Polish driver, whose career was nearly ended by a devastating rally crash in 2011 that left him with severe arm injuries. Once a rising star in Formula One, Kubica fought his way back into top-tier racing, and now, more than a decade later, he stands at the top of the podium in one of the world's most prestigious endurance races. Apart from Kubica, the inter-Europol competition team from the Lesser Poland region emerged victorious in the prestigious LMP2 category. It marks the second win in the team's history and their third podium finish in a row. And on that positive note, we conclude this edition of World News, but please stay tuned to TVP World for more commentaries and other features.